Andy Cole. I'm the relatively new Chief Executive of the Royal Star and Garter Homes charity, and we're a military veterans charity, and we provide really exceptional care in 2 state-of-the-art homes to ex-service personnel and their spouses and partners.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Andy. Thanks for coming to talk to me today. I've got 5 questions for you, and I'm asking various chief executives about their experience of leading their organisations. I find that it's something we don't hear that much about, is the actual day-to-day, how do you look after your staff and so on, and how you are in your role. So that's why I'm making these interviews. So the first question is, what do you think is the one most valuable thing that you do to help your staff to shine in their roles?
It's a really tough question just to choose one thing. I suppose what I've always tried to do, both in my role here and all the other roles I've had, I was chief executive of baby charity Bliss for a number of years, is really try and just trust in the people that you've got in your team. So you hire great people and you want them to do fantastic work, and my role I've always seen is that I want to try and support my team to do the best work they possibly can. Sometimes that means allowing them to fail in a safe way, making sure that they're always learning from their experiences. Obviously we always want people to succeed and projects to succeed, but actually if you really want teams to move forward and develop, I've always found that you just need to trust those key people. If you spent the time to hire the right people in and get them trained and inducted into the organisation the right way, you've got to back them. And if that means that sometimes things don't go absolutely perfectly, then that's fine, as long as we're learning from those experiences. So
nice.
I hope I've been trying to trust those key people, and then if things don't go quite as well as you would want, that you're there to help and guide and support and get the best result, but also make sure the learning's really clear from those experiences as well. So I suppose that's what I always try and do, and I'm trying to do very much at Star and Garter too. We're a growing organisation. We've gone over the last few years from one home, a sort of iconic home in Richmond in Surrey, to now 2 homes and soon to be 3 homes, and we need to create a culture within the organisation where each of those homes understands the sort of central ethos of the charity, but has that flexibility to be able to operate independently as well. And that's a big change for an organisation to go through. And that means finding the right leaders, for want of a better word, in the organisation, and trusting and empowering them to do what actually they're really very good at doing.
Yeah. And trust goes both ways too, presumably. When you start behaving like that, people trust you as well.
I hope so. I mean, I'm not perfect. I don't think any chief executive claims that they're perfect is probably being very honest. We all mess up with things, and I'm learning all the time. I love working for an organisation where every day there's something new and different that I'm finding, and I've got great people who stop me on a regular basis walking off a cliff, and that's a fantastic place to be, to have a team that you trust, to know that they're doing the best for you as well.
Thank you. So my second question is around the challenges that your people face, and what, if you feel able to share that, what would you say is the biggest challenge that the people who work for you face, and how are you helping them to move through that?
I suppose we've got 2 areas really in the charity at the moment. One is one that I know lots of other charities will be right in the mix of, which is the whole change of what's happening with fundraising and the way that organisations can raise money. There's a huge amount of change happening in that area of the sector, and lots of concerns and new things to find out and work, and we're in this sort of grey area in the middle of change where we're not quite sure what new regulation is going to be and how new generations of people may wish to support, certainly our charity, I think many charities. So leading with that degree of uncertainty and trying to make sure that our really good fundraising team sort of have the ability to work out the right way to make this work for us, that's really challenging, because there is no right answer to it. There's just going to be the best fit answer for us to have. So that's a big element, and obviously fundraising for income generation for all charities is a big challenge. And then the other, as I said, we're a growing charity. We're moving from this sort of single home, large iconic single home model to what will soon be 3, and then probably 4 and even 5 homes. So there's a challenge there just in the sort of cultural and structural side of the organisation. We become more diffuse, but I'm absolutely passionate that we make sure that any staff could come from any of our homes and work in any other home and feel that they were in a Royal Star and Garter home. The building might look a little bit different, of course the residents would be different, but they would get that sense of the quality of care that we provide, and that's a real challenge to sort of distill that down and make sure that we're putting that really strong ethos, and we've been around for 100 years, so there's a really strong cultural side to the organisation, and making sure that those new homes embrace that, and that requires me and all the senior team to really understand that culture, what's important, the values that we live by, and being a very military-based charity, we obviously have very incredibly strong links to all the services, and making sure all of those elements are clear, and that as we bring new staff into the homes to open up new homes, they would be places that our current staff would be very proud to work in as they are now. So that's going to be a big challenge over the next couple of years. We're opening a new home in High Wycombe in about 18 months' time, and that's a huge operational challenge, but also will require lots of work across the charity to actually take us to that sort of multi-site model as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So what about this this question around, how do you manage to keep being the chief exec with the big vision, but managing the day-to-day? What are the sort of little hacks that you have to help you do that?
It's a tough one, particularly when I've generally worked, not always, I spent a little bit of time working for Leonard Cheshire Disability and much larger organisations, but I've generally worked for smaller, medium-sized organisations. And so you do end up sometimes being a jack of all trades, and you need to get down and get your hands dirty with stuff, and that's fine. I love doing that, and I think you learn a lot from taking on a sort of operational project and really driving that. But it is important that you give that time for yourself, and I suppose what I learned a good few years in, certainly to my time at Bliss, that meetings booked in with myself, preferably somewhere other than the office, was a fantastic way of me just getting even just a couple of hours to stop and think and evaluate whether what had been happening over the previous few weeks was working. Were we on strategy, actually pulling those elements together and sort of reflecting with a very strong strategic focus at Bliss, and we're in the middle of a long-term strategic plan with Royal Star and Garter homes. That actually, if you're not careful and all you look at is the day-to-day, that you suddenly find that you veered a bit off what you intended to do. I'm very lucky to have come into an organisation that now, which sort of 10 years ago set out a plan to move from its single home model and create these new homes, and we're almost at the end of that cycle, which is wonderful, almost unique to see a very clear strategy set out and then properly delivered. And we're actually now starting that process of thinking about, and what will we do next for the next 10 or 15 years, apart from continuing to run the homes to a very standard. So getting that time out, time to think, time to talk, actually just making some time to engage with other chief execs and see other things, not get too tied up in your own world, I've always found very liberating.
Yeah.
And I've been very lucky to have in both sectors, actually, both with the Baby Charities group, incredibly sharing group of chief execs who are willing to sort of share problems, and also very much with the military charities that we work with, open, willing to share their experiences and thoughts, successes and failures, and actually getting a bit of debate around that always makes you sort of stop and take a bit of a think.
That makes me think of that phrase, it's tough at the top, because you're on your own. Is that your experience of it, or does it feel like you're up there on your own?
No, I've always been very lucky to have really fantastic teams around me, directors and heads of department and organisations who've been really strong together. But it is can be sometimes a bit of a sort of lonely role, and actually being able to talk to another chief exec, particularly when it's completely non-competitive.
Yeah.
Find someone in another bit of the sector who you just sort of are on the same wavelength with, and actually can have a bit of a challenge of each other's thinking, and you're hitting the same problems, whether they're, I don't know, a staff issue or a technical issue or an accounting issue or whatever it might be, and actually just getting some different viewpoints on that. It may not be your solution that you're going to borrow from them, but actually it just gets you thinking about others that are important. Yeah, I mean, I've always been very lucky. I've had great teams around me, and I think that's a huge trick about trying to sort of be successful as a chief exec is building that senior team around you, making sure they're really clear about where their responsibilities are, and that there's trust in that senior team. I'm very lucky to have inherited from my predecessor an absolutely outstanding group of directors, and I'm incredibly lucky and grateful for that. So that continue.
And what about you and your work-life balance? You know, this thing that we all aspire to. Do you find that you can get one? And what and how are you managing to do that, or not managing to do it?
I've never been the best at being able to do that. I think having a young family sort of levels you out a little bit. I've got a young son, so I have to make sure that I've got my life in balance around that. It's the most important thing for me, of course. Just getting a little bit of time out. I do work a lot in the evenings and weekends, just sort of trying to catch up, and lots of people do this. Just reading actually is often, which I love doing, but the reports that come through or the things that I need to just sort of mull on to be able to do over a cup of coffee at home is preferable to having to try and do it in the office. For me, it's really important. I run, so it's really important for me to get out once or twice a week and clear my head and feel fit, and just do something completely different, where it's my version of meditation, I suppose, in some ways, that I can just get out. I don't think about anything else apart from one foot in front of the other, and actually that's fantastic. So I love doing that. But I love what I do, and I'm very lucky and very privileged to be in a role where I get to work with incredible people, work with some amazing residents in our homes. It is of course a job, but it's a passion, and it's a vocation, and it's something that I'm very happy to. The boundaries between work and life in that sense are not really a problem, so the balance becomes very in that way.
Nice. So what is the nicest thing about being the chief exec of the Royal Star and Garter Homes?
I just have the most fantastic group of residents that we look after. They are really wonderful people, incredible histories and stories, amazing things they have done in their lives, and we all owe them an enormous debt of gratitude for what they've done in their service and range of services. Our oldest resident is nearly 102. Was serving in the Second World War with the most fantastic history, and it's very easy to get completely taken away and engaged with the residents that we support. So that is fantastic. Care is a wonderful sector to be in, and we have fantastic staff who just put me to shame in terms of their skills and energy and love that they can offer. And I'm always learning. I don't like standing still in myself, but every day here there is something new to find out, whether it's an architectural issue with our new build or something technical that I didn't know about nursing care, and that's wonderful for me. I'm very fulfilled.
Sounds like a fantastic role that you've got there. Thank you so much, Andy. It's really, really good to talk to you.